it is.
We have a lot to get to. Now, apparently the other week, everyone told me Jeff Lewis was mentioning me on his show. I listened.
Yes, I listened too.
Over my, who would have thought an interview with Dr. Jen would cause so much controversy?
Jeff had on Shannon Bedore, and I thought it was pretty nice about what they said about your podcast. Jeff even asked her, Jeff said, have you ever been on Behind the Velvet Rope? She said no. And Jeff said, oh, I think a lot of people listen to him. And Shannon was like, do they? I don't know. I mean, I thought it was very nice. And, obviously all these comments stem from what Dr. Jen said about Noella on your podcast.
Being like, and also Jen got a lot of headlines for like, Dr. Jen was fired, blah, blah. I'm like, was that, I mean, really, is it what? I mean, I asked her, listen, you can't come on I've said this before, please don't come on my podcast if you're not ready to just talk. Go on the fluff down the street. I don't need to mention any competitors' names, but there's fluff down the street. Okay. No offense to anyone. So, I mean, Dr. Jen released this statement, and it's just like, all right, you released this statement, but come on, like, you were let go. Let's just be honest. And that got headlines. But yes, I guess she also said, like, that's what Jeff was talking about. But thanks for the shout out, Jeff Lewis and Shane. But that Noella, I mean, is anyone shocked that Noella acted? And when the scene ended, she said, oh, did we do well? And I'm okay with Noella being gone.
You are? Okay. Well, I guess
I am. And I'm not shocked.
Okay. Well, I mean, they said that basically she acted. I mean, a lot of people have said that she just completely acted. Her scenes, played them up, wasn't real. I mean, I'm kind of with you. Like I told you, I tuned into the first couple of episodes and I really wasn't all that. I just couldn't get into it. I couldn't get into Dr. Jen. I couldn't get into, I thought Noella had potential, like the storyline, the money, she's obviously getting divorced now. But it just never, I don't know. For me, it never meshed. And I mean, I love Emily and Gina, but I wasn't blown away either. I'm like, I just feel like we've been there, done that. Like you could keep one of them maybe, but like even with the drama with Shane, there really wasn't, he did finally pass the bar. I guess he's going to be an attorney. I mean, it was kind of like there's nothing else there for either of them.
Sarah, we had 2 seasons ago, we had an off season on Orange County because, it was COVID, and I love Elizabeth Vargas. She came on my show. We bonded. Last season, we brought back Heather Dubrow, which I mean, everyone disagreed because people don't like her. I love Heather. It was great. Still an off season, but guess what, Sarah? Next season of The Real Housewives of Orange County is not going to be an off season because we have the return of the one, the only Miss Tamra Judge.
I love when you do that intro. Okay, give me the scoop. I cannot even believe this because like literally a month ago, we were talking about the sound clip where Andy Cohen said, I can't imagine her coming back now that she does this 2 T's in a pod, tell all podcast. Here she is back. Now, what's your hot take? Because I have a hot take on this, but what's yours?
My hot take is here's my hot take. There was all this talk last season that Tamra was coming back with Heather, blah, blah, blah. My opinion is Heather Dubrow said the return of Heather Dubrow is about the return of Heather Dubrow. That opening scene where she walks, I'm back, anyone home? You see her feet, it pans up, the big house. I believe that Heather said, Kelly, she's not a producer. She doesn't have final say, but I believe Heather, get Kelly off. I'm not working with her. And there'll be no Tamra Judge. There'll be nobody. It's the return of Heather Dubrow. She came back. We did that. I then said, because unlike everyone else with their fucking egos, I'm able to admit when I'm wrong. I said, I don't think Tamara's going to come back because we brought Heather back. The ratings weren't great. Love Heather being back. And I'm like, I don't think the direction after they recast New York and there's 2 New Yorks and there's an old one and now there's a new one. I'm like, I don't think this model of bringing back the OGs is what they're going to do for the OC because we tried that with Heather and the ratings weren't great. And I think they're just going to scrap not start over because they just did that with New York. but figure something out. And then somewhere in there, I was like, maybe Tamra will be back. Look, I've always said, not to say I was right, because I wasn't, but I've always said, no, Vicki's not coming back. And yeah, I could see Tamra coming back. I could. And then when they let this one, Jen and Noella go, then I was like, oh my God, it's happening. Then I was like, fuck, this is real. I've said before, like Tamra's also said, by the way, she's already come out and said, yes, I will keep doing 2 T's in a pod, but I might be taking some time off while I film. That is already out there. So my hot take is I was right and wrong at the same time. My take is I'm not shocked. I'm really not. Like, this makes sense. Tamra is, I think that somewhere in there at the end, I personally lost how great a housewife Tamra really is.
Yeah.
And I think not having her there and watching her on Girls Trip 2, I told you before, Phaedra was my all-star of Girls Trip 2, and Dorinda was probably second, and Tamra popped for me. There's something about Tamra that popped, and I was like, wow, I think I underestimated how good Tamra is at this job. And it all makes sense. And we did say, despite Andy saying that, it takes one phone call of, bitch, you can't be revealing private, behind the scenes shit while you're on the 2 T's with that Mellenball. And all it takes is like, tisk, 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 you're slapped on the wrist, Tamra, or quit the podcast. And Tamra's like, yes. So my take is, I think it's a great idea. Listen, she has real life beef with Shannon. The Tres Amigas have broken up. She's fought with Heather a lot over my podcast, a lot over here, things Heather said. And she said she's fighting with Heather. They were on a good place, but now they're fighting. And she has said on my podcast, on every podcast, and their own podcast, that Emily and Gina are the 2 most boring people that have ever existed in the world, is basically what she said. So this woman is coming into a whole cast that she has issues with. And the rumor is she's also bringing a friend or 2 of hers. But go on.
No, I mean, I think you have the best overall take about it. Mine was, I just feel like, I think you hear from so many, Dr. Jen said it, like, they don't make it's interesting to me because we think of like someone like a Bravo, and obviously they have production companies that shoot these shows, but you think of them being so organized and strategic at times. And then you kind of hear from the cast members, they sometimes don't even find out they're filming for like a week before, So I feel like when they had that moment where he was like, I don't think she'll be back, I think I don't even think he knew. I think it was so last minute. And like, to your point, they could not ditch Real Housewives of OC and just try to do a whole new thing. They did that. They're trying to do that with New York, right? This whole legacy cast.